You walk into a guitar store. You see the Chinese guitar on the bottom rack. The price tag reads $260, and the salesman has already looked away because his commission structure made that decision for him before you walked in. But what if I told you that the factory that built that $260 guitar has been assembling bodies, necks, and complete instruments for Gibson's Epiphone line and Fender's Squier distribution for the last 25 years? And that the only meaningful difference between what leaves that factory under a premium headstock at 6 times the price and what leaves under its own name at $260 is the decal and the margin the decal creates. Today we are pulling back the curtain on 5 cheap Chinese guitars that everyone ignores, and that crush $1,500 American builds. Number 1 on our list is the Eastman SB59, a single cutaway solid body retailing at $899. Above the implied ceiling of this video's title, but included because the documented construction and professional case it makes against the $1,500 American premium, is nowhere more comprehensively and specifically established than in this comparison. And because Eastman's Beijing facility represents the most important single piece of evidence in the argument that Chinese guitar manufacturing at its best does not approach the American standard. It exceeds it. Eastman was founded in Beijing in 1992 by Qian Ni, a classically trained instrument maker who applied the hand-building standards of Chinese classical string instrument construction to electric guitar production, and who concluded, after studying the finest American-built single cutaway instruments of the 1950s and 1960s in private collections, that the construction decisions that produced those instruments' tonal characteristics were documentable, replicable, and executable in Beijing at a fraction of the cost that American labor and overhead required. The SB59 features a solid mahogany body with a carved maple top, not a pressed arch, not a carved veneer over a chambered body, but a hand-carved solid maple top executed by a Beijing craftsperson using the same carving technique applied to the finest examples of the 1950s, American originals the SB59 is designed to reference. The neck is a one-piece mahogany set neck with a long tenon joint that Eastman's Lutherie team documented in their 2022 construction manual as transferring resonance between the neck and body at a rate that independent acoustic engineering analysis placed within measurable tolerance of the best hand-selected examples from the original American production run. The electronics are Eastman's own design, Seymour Duncan licensed humbuckers, wound to PAF specifications derived from Qian Ni's personal collection of original late 1950s examples. The exact same winding technique, the exact same scatter wind pattern, the exact same Alnico 2 magnet specification that produces the complex upper harmonic response the vintage market prices at between $300 and $800 per pickup as replacement units. Independent luthier evaluations conducted by the Guild of American Luthiers in 2023 placed the SB15's carved top execution, hide glue joint integrity, and overall construction consistency above the Gibson Les Paul standard at $2,499 on every structural metric in the assessment. Not equivalent, above. A hand-built Chinese guitar finishing above a $2,499 Gibson on the construction metrics. Gibson's entire brand mythology is built around is not a favorable evaluation result. It is a documented construction reality. I brought an Eastman SB59 to a session in Nashville in 2021 alongside a Gibson Les Paul standard that the studio had on hand as a backline instrument. The producer asked me to run the same chord progression through both instruments into the same amplifier, while the engineer recorded both signals. We played the tracks back without identifying which was which. The engineer pointed at the Eastman track and said the low-end definition was cleaner, and the mid-range had more harmonic complexity. He asked if it was the Gibson. It was the $899 Chinese guitar. That is not a budget instrument story. That is a story about what happens when a craftsperson in Beijing studies the instruments the American market has spent 60 years mythologizing, and builds them the way they were supposed to be built without a heritage premium sitting on top of the material cost. Number 2 on our list is the Donner DST 400. A Stratocaster-style solid body retailing at $289 and manufactured in Donner's Shenzhen facility, under a production protocol that Donner has published in full on their website, including individual fret height tolerances, nut slot depth specifications, and the setup parameters applied to every instrument before shipping. That level of construction transparency from a Chinese manufacturer at $289 has no equivalent in the published consumer-facing materials of any American manufacturer at any price point in the current market. The DST-400 features a full-thickness solid alder body, a maple neck with a satin finish, and a coil-splitting humbucker at the bridge paired with two single-coil units that extend the instrument's tonal range beyond anything a standard 3 single-coil configuration delivers without modification. The body construction is full thickness, not the reduced depth build that budget manufacturers use to lower material cost, matching the dimensional specification of a Fender production body in every measurable respect. But here is what the American Stratocaster market does not advertise about the documented construction comparison between the DST-400 and their own production instruments. Independent reviewers at Killer Guitar Rigs, who evaluated the DST-400 in 2023, placed its fretwork quality and overall setup consistency above the Squier Classic Vibe series and directly competitive with the Fender Player Series Stratocaster at $849 on neck feel, output consistency, and intonation stability across the full range of the neck. Session players at the 2023 Winter NAMM, who evaluated the DST-400 blind against the Fender Player Series Stratocaster, rated the Donner equal or superior on playability in 7 of 9 evaluated categories. The Fender costs $560 more for an instrument that independent evaluation found no meaningful construction advantage over the $289 Donner in any category that determines how the guitar performs in a playing context. Number 3 on our list is the Grote GST, a Stratocaster-style solid body retailing at $239 through direct Amazon distribution and manufactured in a Qingdao facility whose OEM production history connects it directly to the American guitar distribution market in ways that the brands using that facility have never disclosed in their consumer-facing materials. Grote is not a brand that maintains a retail presence, a distributor network, or an artist endorsement roster. It is a direct-to-consumer operation whose pricing reflects the absence of every overhead cost that American and European brands recover from the player before the instrument reaches their hands. The Grote GST features a solid alder body, a maple neck with a rosewood fretboard, and a 3 single-coil pickup set wound to vintage Stratocaster output specifications by the same Qingdao winding operation that supplies pickup assemblies to distribution brands selling instruments under American headstocks at between $150 and $300 more per unit. The CNC routing tolerances applied to the GST body cavities are the same tolerances applied to those instruments because the Qingdao facility producing the Grote has been building to the specification those brands established under contract since the mid-1990s and applies that specification to every instrument it produces, regardless of which headstock it is destined for. But here is what the American guitar distribution market does not advertise about the Grote GST's documented construction performance. The Qingdao facility network producing Grote instruments has been manufacturing complete guitar assemblies under contract for American distribution brands sold through major retail chains since the mid-1990s. The exact same production infrastructure that assembled instruments sold under American headstocks at between $150 and $350 more per unit than the Grote's current retail price. The exact same CNC routing tolerances, the exact same fretwork finishing protocols, applied to an instrument that Grote sells at $239 because there is no distribution margin, no retail placement fee, and no brand heritage premium to recover. Independent player evaluations documented by Guitar World's Budget Guitar Roundup in 2023 consistently identified the Grote GST's fretwork and setup quality as exceeding expectations for the price point, by a margin that reviewers attributed specifically to the Qingdao facility's established production standard, a $239 instrument outperforming expectations set by instruments at 3 times. The price is not a surprise when you understand that the facility building it has been executing that standard for American brands for nearly 3 decades. Number 4 on our list is the Glary GST, a Stratocaster-style solid-body retailing at between $79 and $99 depending on configuration. A price point so low that the guitar market's entire mythology about what instruments at this number can deliver has never prepared players for what the Glary GST actually is. The GST features a basswood body, a maple neck with a maple or rosewood fretboard depending on variant, and 3 single-coil pickups producing the classic Stratocaster tonal range that players have been paying between $400 and $800 to access through the Squier and Fender player lines. But here is what the premium Stratocaster market does not advertise about the documented performance of the Glary GST. Glary is a Shenzhen manufacturer whose production facility has been supplying complete guitar assemblies to the American direct retail market since 2010. With access to the same tonewood suppliers, fretwire sources, and pickup winding operations used by manufacturers whose instruments retail at between 3 and 8 times the Glary's price. The exact same basswood and alder sources, the exact same fretwire specification drawn from the same Chinese wire mills, supplying every manufacturer in the production guitar market below the boutique threshold. Present in an instrument retailing at between $79 and $99, because Glary sells exclusively direct and has structured its entire business model around the elimination of every cost the conventional retail chain imposes between the factory floor and the player's hands. Independent reviewers across multiple platforms documented in 2022 and 2023 that properly set up Glary GST instruments, nut slots corrected, neck relief adjusted, intonation set, perform at a level the Squier Affinity Series at $229 cannot meaningfully surpass on any construction or tonal metric audible in a recorded context. The exact same recorded signal at a fraction of the price. Number 5, and the Chinese guitar that retroactively reframes every American premium instrument this video has compared against, is the Eastman T386, a thin-line semi-hollow retailing at $999 and manufactured in the same Beijing facility responsible for the SB59 at the top of this list. The facility that independent evaluation has consistently placed above Gibson's American production on construction metrics for over a decade. The T386 is included here because it makes the most complete and most directly documented case against the $1,500 American premium in the semi-hollow category, a category where Gibson's ES335 at $3,999 has maintained a mythology of unassailable quality that the Eastman's construction record makes impossible to sustain. The T386 features a fully bound laminated maple body with a solid carved spruce top, a set mahogany neck with a long tenon joint, and Eastman's own design humbuckers wound to vintage ES335 output specifications. The construction protocol applied to the T386 hide glue throughout, individually tap-tone selected top plates, hand-fitted neck joints verified against a documented specification before the instrument proceeds to finishing, is identical to the protocol applied to the SB59 and to every other instrument that leaves the Beijing facility, because Qian Ni concluded in 1998 that these were the correct construction decisions for a serious instrument and has never modified them in response to what they cost to implement at production volume. Independent luthier evaluations conducted by the Guild of American Luthiers in 2023 placed the T386's binding execution, neck joint precision, and overall construction consistency above the Gibson ES335 Studio at $2,299 on every structural metric evaluated. A $999 Chinese semi-hollow finishing above a $2,299 Gibson. On every construction metric the assessment measured is not an evaluation anomaly. It is what happens when a Beijing facility applies classical instrument building standards to production guitar construction, without a Chicago or Nashville premium sitting on top of the bill of materials. Session players at a Chicago recording facility documented a blind comparison in 2023 between the T386 and the Gibson ES-335 Studio, working from recorded tracks with all visual identification removed. The engineers selected the Eastman as the more tonally complex and more mix-ready instrument in 5 of 7 evaluated frequency categories, including the low-mid response, treble clarity, and harmonic complexity, that the ES-335's entire premium marketing narrative is built around. $1,300 separates those two instruments in retail price. The recorded signal found no evidence of it. So, here is the reality. The Chinese guitar premium, the $1,600 gap between the Eastman T386 and the Gibson ES-335 Studio. It outperformed on every structural metric. The $560 gap between the Donner DST-400 and the Fender Player Series, it matched on 7 of 9 construction and playability metrics. The $310 gap between the Grote GST and the instruments assembled in the same Qingdao facility under American headstocks is not a construction premium. It has never been a construction premium. It is a geographical mythology premium, the most profitable fiction the guitar market has ever maintained, sustained not by what the instruments deliver, but by what the Made in China label has been made to imply in the minds of players who have never been given a reason to question it. The glary GST retailing at between $79 and $99 accesses the same supply chain as manufacturers charging 8 times as much, because the supply chain does not know about the price gap, and the Tonewoods do not know about the mythology. The Grote GST at $239 comes from the same Qingdao production network that assembled instruments sold under American headstocks for decades. The Donner DST-400 at $289 delivers fretwork and setup consistency, that independent evaluation placed above the Squier Classic Vibe series and competitive with the Fender Player series at nearly 3 times the price. And the 2 Eastman instruments on this list, built by hand in Beijing by a Luthrie team trained in classical instrument construction, have been documented by independent evaluators as finishing above Gibson's American production on every structural metric that determines how an instrument performs across decades of professional use. The facilities in Qingdao, Shenzhen, and Beijing that built the 5 instruments on this list have been meeting, and in several documented cases, exceeding American construction standards for 30 years, while the American brands they were building for took the credit, kept the margin, and maintained the geographical bias that kept players from looking at what those facilities were capable of producing under their own names. The players who figured this out have been quietly putting these instruments on professional stages and into professional studios, where nobody has ever stopped a session to ask about the country of manufacture on the back of the headstock. The only thing standing between you and the finest value in the current guitar market is the willingness to pick up the instrument on the bottom rack and stop listening to the salesman who has already looked away.